Hello and welcome to Storyboard18. Today we are here to discuss sports marketing in the esports space and the immense opportunity for brands and marketers in this segment. Today we have with us Mr. Rajan Navani, who's the VC and MD at JetSynthesys, and we also have Skandaram Vasudevan, Partner Strategy, Mudramax. Welcome, speakers. Great to have you here on this session today.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we'll start with the questions directly. In the last 2 years, we have seen the traffic go up on esports platforms tremendously, thanks to the stay-at-home crowd, the pandemic, and we have seen huge number of downloads when it comes to options here. What we are trying to understand here, that who are these audiences? Rajan, we'd want to know from you what is the category of audience that we have in this space? What is the kind of people that you see logging into your platforms?
So, thank you, and great to be here and chatting about a subject that, what you rightly said, has been, one of the most rapidly growing sectors when it comes to many things, right? Specifically, when you look at it from an entertainment perspective. So, what has happened is the Gen Z, the millennial, for whom their life engagement or the time engagement with digital has increased significantly. The choices that they are making when it comes to where are they spending their time, esports is a very large part, of that. So around the world, I think many reports show that there are over 500 million people. That's a large percentage of the world global population is watching esports, every month, right? So now imagine when you're watching something, right, then the urge to play more, to get better at that, will have a ripple effect. So what we're really seeing, happen at scale is a lot of the Gen Z's entertainment is now derived from watching esports. And that has become, I think, the big shift or big change, globally and particularly in India also, during the pandemic, which has now also become a very exciting proposition now for brands to come and engage, with such audiences. So to me, it's that generation. Now that's the generation, and you have to find the mediums to reach them, right? So at JetSynthesys, we've always looked at, doing everything in interest-based communities, right? And for us, any community that is over 100 million people in the world, to me, is an important, community. And today, esports has actually become, a very significant, size of a community. But more importantly, probably the fastest growing, because the Gen Zs are now bringing in millennials and, even the parents and other audiences, because, they all want to know what is it the Gen Zs are doing these days, right? More out of curiosity. And that is bringing newer people, into the fold. I think, there was a large esports fan, which was male, is now, also attracting a lot of female audiences. We have now in India also, full female esports teams that are, becoming professional. So a lot of action happening in this space.
Coming to you, Skanda, millennials and Gen Z are the buzzwords for marketers these days, right? So how do you see the audience from, the strategy point of view? How do you see the audience? What is this audience category or classification for you?
I broadly agree with what Rajan is stating, because I would like looking at how the audience has progressed. You would divide it between players who are actually engaging and playing those games and people who are consuming the content. Now, Gen Z is your core audience who are involved into the whole gaming and the competitive side of things. Whereas in a consumption audience includes your millennials, includes everyone, and consumption is a massive part of this audience. So, in a way, for any brands to reach out, you're actually getting both sets of audiences whom you can reach. And India, like according to various reports, right, has almost 10% of the global viewing audience base for esports, which is a massive number. So it honestly is definitely growing, right? And again, as we've seen throughout different mediums in the country, it mirrors the overall media landscape. Even esports in India, as compared to other countries, is dominant on mobile. Again, Geo kickstarted this whole thing where they made internet accessible to the everyday man, and you see that trend reflected across the use of social media and even in the space of gaming. So even in esports, we see a predominantly younger tech obsessed audience who are dominantly playing from their mobile. So it's not a hardcore console gamer or a hardcore PC gamer that you would normally associate with an esports fan, but mobile esports is what is actually kicking that trend forward in India. That is something I would say.
Coming back to you, Rajan, again, we want to understand from the provider or the platform point of view. When it comes to options for brands, what we generally understand is advertising, but I'm sure there is more to it. There is partnerships, there is collaborations. So, are the options as wide when compared to the traditional sports that we have, or is it any different in esports? If you can explain that for our audience.
So, you're right. As a matter of fact, it is what is there for traditional esports and more. Again, because, the generation is very different, because there is a lot you can do with the Gen Zs, both in terms of, making it interactive, two-way kind of participation. There is a lot that can happen in driving, a call to action with Gen Zs who are digitally native, right? So you have an audience that understands the way they can engage with digital, far better than that. So I think brands who recognize that are probably going to be optimally able to utilize this opportunity on esports. So of course, and we operate across the entire spectrum. So while you will have brands, coming in more as sponsors for some of the larger tournaments, and then using that as a way to establish trust and credibility with the next gen. And there are many segments of brands that are now reaching out, to these audiences for different reasons. There is an entire opportunity, of course, on advertising that keeps coming in as any other broadcast media. The for tournament operators or strong IP holders like us, there is this entire opportunity of monetization, which is around the broadcast media rights that we have, and now these are all new trends that are emerging in areas of esports like any other traditional sport. I think syndicating revenue, in different forms are all many opportunities, have come up, which, as I said, traditional sports offers, but even beyond this. And I think, the role of the influencer here is massive, right? And I think, that again, using influencers of this space to do more is also in an indirect way, which is coming money flowing into, this industry. And the last point, Dasmay, I want to make is that the highest growth we have seen are in actually tier 2, tier 3 cities. So it's like any other sport, we say our Olympic champion, say even in a javelin or in any sport, will come from a tier 2, tier 3 city in a village somewhere. The same is happening, for esports. And that is very encouraging. So now when we run our tournaments, right, we have the commentary in 11 different languages already. So we have Kannada, Tamil, Bhojpuri, Telugu, so the audiences are also now getting engaged, at that level. So I think all of this is clearly throwing up multiple opportunities. So today, regional focus marketing for a particular kind of a thing can also be an opportunity. So a lot happening in this space for brands, as long as they're looking at addressing that market.
Skanda, back to you. It would be interesting to understand that, I'm sure you suggest opportunities to your clients in terms of what is the kind of collaboration that they should ideally pick up for a particular product or service that they are trying to advertise. So here, how would you compare to the options that you see that are there in the traditional sports space and esports space? What is your opinion on that?
I honestly would think I would classify them in a pretty similar manner because I agree with what Rajan said. Though aspects of advertising, even in esports, are immense. From sponsoring athletes, I mean, Asian Games, the last Asian Games had esports as an entire category, and even the upcoming Asian Games will do so, which is happening in September. So, and all of our esports tournaments are present across major OTTs. Voot, Sony Live, Hotstar have hostings of various tournaments that happen through the country. So the whole aspect of gaming and esports is slowly moving from a niche to a more mass perspective. Mass is basically what sports is in our country. clients still need a little bit of convincing because there is that perception that gaming is a very niche category and it might not relate. But that's where the whole aspect of strategy, and that's what at DDB steps in, where we actually sit and ideate and explain to clients as to how gaming could potentially be an option, whether it be sponsoring athletes or whether it be creating tournaments, and how it fits seamlessly with a brand story. If it's a food brand, how they can create an entire gaming culture, how they can sponsor tournaments and make it related. So it's building that connect from brand to the activity of esports. That's what's important. That's what we strive to do with clients.
Right, right. That's a very interesting point, Skanda. I think that is one of the topics we'll be discussing, that, about the notion brands have about esports as a category, and whether they are convinced enough or they're not convinced enough. And, picking up from there, I'll come to you, Rajan, about talking about the category of brands that already use the space for their communication or marketing. Is it just the new age brands who are tuned in and who know what this is about, what are the opportunities, or are there, any legacy brands, any legacy marketers also who have understood the immense potential that is there in esports today?
Interestingly, I think it's a combination of, pretty much every brand now beginning to look at esports, right? Like one, of course, you have all the gaming brands, the technology brands that are, powering, gaming consoles, gaming PCs, mobile companies, etc. that you see. But, so those have a pretty much a direct interest in that community. But I think the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, the gaming influencers are playing such a big role, you're getting pretty much every single category, right? It's lifestyle, FMCG, cosmetics, automotive, you name it. And, all of them have got some kind of a link. Maybe the value of the brand, commitment today is low, but we definitely see that, increasing. And there are very, very popular brands, like, especially when it comes to, brands, of course, like Pepsi, Coke, and, Mountain Dew, Red Bull. You'll see those kind of, companies completely and deeply invested, in a target audience like this. As a matter of fact, amongst the many things we've done through both our, esports companies, of course, Nodwin, which is one of not only India's largest but one of the world's largest companies, as well as Sky Sports. We found that we did a very interesting play there with Mountain Dew, where we put the photograph of the gamer on the bottom, right? So you can only imagine the power of that gamer when he goes back home and shows it to his parents. Say, you thought I was wasting my time, but actually, I'm on the bottle of a Mountain Dew. So you give recognition, so brands actually can get involved and derive value out of, the players who are there, right? So there are many ways in which brands can engage, with an audience such as this, as I said, because you're tapping into an audience that, is willing to work with you. This generation is looking at it differently. Similarly, we see with a lot of say luxury auto brands, right? We see BMW, Mercedes, all have now started looking at this space. And of course, in when you look at Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and you see all of them, they actually have now characters and a lot of their products in different gaming applications already there. And those are the games that are being played, as esports games. So you're going to find a lot of this continuing to happen, but it is a large cross section of brands, according to me, that will move. And we are not even still talking of a large number of new age brands, where automatically there's a deeper connect, because, as I said, the call to action for a digital user or a digital consumer is far greater when it comes to those brands.
And Askanda, what I'd want to understand from you, this is more of an insight, that what are the kind of brands or category of brands that you think works best with esports? What would you suggest?
Honestly, instead of directly getting into category, I'll answer it slightly differently, right?
Sure.
Any medium which becomes popular and established, it is known that it is established when advertisers actually start looking at audience reaching rather than convincing of the medium. So the moment you don't need to establish that a medium is important and rather just look at the audiences that are present in the medium, that's when you know that medium has made it like it's an established practice. Now, gaming, honestly, the pandemic actually accelerated the use and access of gaming to everyone in the country. So gaming is fast on its way there, and esports is a niche within gaming. So esports is also on the way there, but it's a slower process. It will be there. It's the fastest growing medium, as was mentioned. So it will be there. Honestly, right now the way esports is being talked about, I would say, in terms of reaching out to people who are actually playing, in terms of the Generation Zs, gaming brands and tech brands, as Rajan mentioned, makes perfect sense. And we've had brands like these, right? We've had Vivo, we've had Oppo, Acer with their whole Predator and gaming series, actually sponsoring tournaments, being the main hosts of tournaments across all of those. But if we take a step back and look at the audience consuming the content rather than just people playing, then I feel it opens up the opportunity to a huge, humongous host of brands. And even otherwise, we've seen even legacy brands like Yes Bank, which is a core BFSI category, make some advents into gaming in terms of hosting and sponsoring tournaments, right? So if we expand the definition of esport audience from a purely gaming perspective to even a consuming perspective, honestly, I would say the world's your oyster. So brands, it basically becomes a play of what audience do I want to reach, where they're consuming, and there are plenty of them. So it becomes an audience game rather than just a fit, like a category or a consumer fit game.
The next thing that I'd want to understand, Rajan, if you can help us understand that, when brands pick up a certain platform, a certain medium, they have certain expectations. Of course, reach and access are the primary expectations of a marketer when they put in ad dollars or marketing budget into a particular platform. But what is it exactly they are expecting when they come to you? What are the opportunities, or what are the options and customizations that you provide to your marketers who come to Jet Synthesis?
Interestingly, Tasmir, because we play in the ecosystem of gaming and esports, we are able to offer a lot more to any brand, right? Right from actually integrating their brand into the world's largest cricket games, for example, real cricket and Sachin Saga, where the brand can actually have a presence within the game. So you can actually, get a power up with say your brand, and that kind of integration where you become, part of the currency, or the way the gamers are engaging within the game itself. And these are mid-core games that are also esports, right? So we ran the first real cricket championship, the first Sachin Saga championship, because what esports enables us to do is it brings the grassroots players and also creates the excellence, right? So the top players of that game will then attract a better quality of viewership, and that itself will enhance the brand. But there are millions of people every day who are also engaging with the brand within the game, because we own the game, we have the publishing, we have a different division that is running the esports, so we are able to provide brands a far deeper and a more engaged experience, and particularly around areas, like cricket and others, where India, is very, very strong. But beyond that, I think what brands also really look for is an outcome, right? I mean, and while you can say access, viewership, I think we are able to enable a call to action, a kind of campaigns, etc., for many of our brands. We are able to give them visibility across physical as well as digital medium. So we ran India's largest land tournament, recently, once the pandemic opened up. So a lot of physical presence where there are audiences who are physically watching. Then there are audiences who are again, involved in the digital world. Then we also, because we have a strong music ecosystem, we are able to integrate other forms of entertainment along with that. So the Gen Z actually is at a cross section of e-sport, gaming, music, all coming together, right? So we're able to do that across both physical formats as well as digital formats. And now, for brands, we are able to create some special experiences, given that we can create exclusive digital assets, that are for the brand, right? So it's not only a stadium, like in say cricket, where you will have billboards on the pitch and around the boundary lines and etc. But you can actually have an exclusive space, which is a virtual asset that is owned by the brand, constantly provided to them for a longer term period. So many new opportunities coming in, even because of the advancements of technology, right? So, personalized viewing, so we can actually segment a particular brand's value to a specific audience, even within these audiences using AI or using blockchain. We can, enable, as I said, longer term value creation. So today the brand owns the spot like a hoarding, and tomorrow the brand can trade that spot to somebody else, right? If they want to give it. So we're giving a lot of options to brands to kind of get involved. And for us, that is possible because we have this whole large ecosystem play across, gaming entertainment. So many options and opportunities that we are, building out for brands. And these are all, first time new opportunities, right? Very, very interesting times.
Talking of new opportunities, Kanda, I'll come back to you about the point that you mentioned earlier, that how aware are brands about these new opportunities. When you talk to your clients and you suggest them, and you suggest esports as a possible option, in their to include in their marketing playbook, how convinced are they? Does it take a lot of convincing to get esports added to their marketing tools, or are they already convinced? Are they already aware of the possibilities and opportunities in this space?
It's a slightly nuanced way. Like marketers, like our brands, they're aware because the pandemic brought it to the forefront. So they're definitely aware that there is an audience present in even in gaming, and even if we take esports in particular, right? The problem begins in measuring how it is a fit for the brand narrative. How is being like aware of the advertising opportunities and being present on esport and natural fit for the brand. So that's where we as an agency step in, right? We see how it fits with the brand story that we're trying to tell, and how any venture that we take to our brands helps build brand love in consumers. So while they are aware of the overall category of esports, definitely we do explore various options, the different ways they can associate influences, for example, and we ideate with our brands as to how we can probably do it differently and get into it. So there is a fair bit of skepticism, yes. Gaming is a lot more open now. Gaming is slowly reaching a more massy phase where people are aware and actually want to get into the whole gaming space, even in terms of a brands. Esports is still slightly more nascent that way, but it is definitely on the push towards getting there from both consuming and playing perspective. So it is a slight bit of hesitation, yes, but that's where we step in, where we ideate and figure out the strategy as to how it makes a fit for the brand and thereby push the brand forward.
And
Right,
if you
right.
want us to support you in developing a strategy better, we are happy to do so.
Absolutely.
Because I think all of us need to work together, to be able
Yes.
to unlock that value. Sorry, Tasmay, I intervened on that.
No problem. And talking of brand harmony, brand love, and working together, Rajan, it would be great to learn from you. What are the new brands you are onboarding? What are the new categories that are coming to you? Looking for options that how they can collaborate, how they can partner with your options that you have on board. So, if you can elaborate a little bit on the new brands that you're onboarding or talking to.
Yeah, so as I said, there is always a new category of brands that is sitting on the edge, and that's why I was just mentioning to Skanda, and sometimes after understanding what they are looking at, we are able to create the opportunity specifically for them, and for different brands it's very different, right? Especially those who are now today there are so many new age brands that are looking at attracting new audiences. Right now, the only way for them to get new audiences is if they are able to use some of our exclusive content exclusively on their platforms. So we are finding, brands who want to create new audiences using, gaming, gamification, and our contests or our tournaments and those companies actually wanting to, see how we can partner deeper with them, how we can make more things exclusively available to them, and they're willing to pay, for those kinds of things, right? So these are, those who want an audience share of gaming and gamification, and as we said, technology brands that really believe that our audiences are direct users of many of their products. So they're getting a lot of new tech products, that are coming into the market, that are actually there and kind of working with us. Another very interesting, thing that is happening, and I kind of mentioned it briefly, is that how do you co-create experiences with some of the better and the leading gamers, or esports players with us. So since we are already working with many of these players, and we do that in real sport as well, right? Basically with cricket, we have a joint venture with Sachin Tendulkar in 100 MB, where we look at other cricketers and find ways in which they can, engage deeper with brands. But in the entire gaming and esports community, we have a large plethora, other players who we work with, who are able to influence, again, interdisciplinary communities, right? I told you esports and music, for example, food and lifestyle and fashion, they all go, they all cut across somewhere. Now we are introducing comedy and magic and other kinds of things in physical and those events, again, which are cutting across some of these communities. So the ability for us to either use our influencer ecosystem, either to use our games, either to use our tournaments, and all of that, enable us to give something to all types of brands, And I think, as I said, we need, the brands to be more convinced through a little more detailed research and that kind of mechanism, which I'm sure people like Skanda and others will provide as we move forward.
Right.
So we are pulling together, to make that happen, right? Media, you're also doing these things because you also believe somewhere that this is an emerging, area for our country, and for our country to be able to, think about India winning a medal in the Asian Games or the Olympics. Of course, we had a bronze medalist in the previous Asian Games in one of the games, but imagine we can win more medals in esports and come back. I mean, nothing will be more valuable to us and for brands, if they start viewing it like that. So I think it's taking time, but it's definitely moving much faster.
Right. Skanda, coming to you, when we talk about any new platform coming into the marketing playbook, we also talk about the kind of money that is parked in that space, right? When IPL came in, we were talking about the immense money brands were putting into IPL as a new and exciting property. So, now that esports is a prominent category where marketers are investing and where marketers are, interested. So, if you can tell me a little bit about how much are brands open to spending in this category, and what part of their total spends goes into esports. I'm talking about the brands who are already investing in this space. If you can elaborate a little bit on that, and if you see brands who have limited investments set aside for esports, do you see those investments going up in the years to come?
In a nutshell, yes. And for a few simplistic reasons, a lot of brands that we've seen, even brands with the like that we have at DTP, and even brands across the country who is investing in esports, they're still slightly hesitant and they're still testing the water, if you will. So a lot of brands are not going full head first into the category. They're testing the waters to see how much, what sort of audiences they are reaching, what sort of output they're getting from being present in the category. So a lot of brands are still in the testing the waters phase, but esports is a shows a very dominant growth in both audiences, women as well as men. Right, almost 30% of esport audiences will be women according to various reports in the next 2 to 3 years. So it's a fast moving category even in terms of an audience base. So honestly, while I would say a lot of brands, because they're just testing the waters and figuring out, would have less than 5% of their overall spends maybe put into esports, sometimes more depending on a special category. I would see that significantly increasing over the next couple of years as more and more audience comes in. So esports is becoming mainstream, right? It's no longer key what will you do if you're just gaming. Like you can make a like proper living out of gaming, and people are completely involved in it. So as it becomes more mainstream, I definitely see brands like maximizing and increasing their spends in the category. It's already started for overall mobile gaming, where brands actually have integration within games, brands have advertisements within games. I'm confident that this will be the same trend continuing forward even for esports in terms of spends.
We'll just wrap up the sessions and I'll ask one wrap up questions where you can summarize the whole thing. Coming to you first, Rajan. If you can give us a wrap up of the entire experience that you are ready to provide brands when they come to you, what are the top three things that you promise them?
First, of course, what we're promising today is taking your brand into the future. And I think there is no better industry than the gaming industry here to take the opportunity of the metaverse, the Web 3.0, the entire new world or new economy that seems to be emerging, beyond the realm of what the physical world provides. So I think we position JetSynthesys as really the company or the leading company that can take your brand into the future. Right? One is that. Second, I think it's connecting with that consumer of the future. So not only are we going to position you there, but we are also finding the medium and the mechanism by way of which you can connect, and more than that, build trust with that Gen Z, with that new consumer of the future. Because it's very hard, to do that, because unlike old traditional ways, you could, put up hoardings, you put up buildings, you went to television. That consumer is not there at all. So, so you cannot use the traditional ways of, reaching out to the consumer, or, even getting the consumer to taste your brand or touch your brand, because he's not going into a store to feel your product or to do any of that. Right? So I think that's a big thing. So, we are also finding ways in which, you can do that. And third is, as I said, using our ecosystem play. I think, we have multiple touch points, for that same user, and we have it at scale, right? So, hundreds of millions of people, at least tens of millions in many communities, we are able to reach, and we are able to reach them across, interest-based communities, right? So for some communities, it is one game that is of interest. For others, it is an entire category, say cricket, or, mindfulness, or, livelihood creation, right? We've got all these communities that we have, been able to build over these years, and we are enabling brands to be able to, touch upon these communities, from multiple ways, but addressing this audience of the future. And and I must tell you that those audiences are looking at how are they going to use their wallet wisely and differently, because as we all know, their wallets are also of very different kind, right? It's in cryptocurrencies, it's in many different kinds of currencies, or many different ways in which it is kind of kept today. And so therefore, even the spending behavior, we believe, is going to be very different for them. So you have an access to that.
Coming to you, Skanda, if you have a client who is not yet there, who's not convinced about joining on the esport race, what are the three top things that you would refer to, or that you would pitch in to help them be convinced about taking up esports as an option?
I would, in a nutshell, just classify it like this, right? One is breaking the clutter. It's as simple as that. As Rajan mentioned, the consumer journeys today are very different to what people have been traditionally used, like from a TV to awareness to a print for consideration to a purchase in retail. Now it's everything and everywhere. You go online on Amazon and you can buy everything from beginning to end. Like, you can have your entire cycle over there from beginning to end. So that consumer is rapidly changing and it's very different. And due to that, you see communication almost everywhere. So how do you break the clutter and make your consumer aware of who you are is one thing that's definitely something that we tell the brands, right? Especially in relation to this. And second, again, that consumer is at the key of any marketing initiative that happens, and where that consumer is and what is that consumer doing and how we can be present in a meaningful and relevant way, which is my third point again, relevance. So all of my 3 points effectively are linked. How am I present for my consumer in a relevant and clutter breaking way? So if I can showcase to them how it fits in with their narrative while having all of these three aspects, esports as a medium becomes then a good point to say.
That wraps up the session for us. Thank you so much, speakers, for joining in. It was a very insightful and exciting session. Thank you again for logging in. Thank you for watching.